Hello people, you can't see me but you can hear me. EricTheCarGuy here. I'm going to call this the RE video to the rear wheel bearing on the RL, and something that caused a lot of confusion. This is actually a different car, believe it or not. Same vehicle, different car. There was a lot of confusion about the drum brake assembly being inside the disc brake. The reason for this is this assembly in here is actually the parking brake. So that's why that is there. It's as you apply the parking brake, these shoes go against the inside of this drum and of the parking brake. The regular brakes are just this caliper. Some cars do this, and I personally think it's a better design because I don't like it when the parking brake assembly is all incorporated into the caliper. In my opinion, what that does is it makes it so that the caliper has one more thing to fail. And they usually do this to make it cheap. Because if you've got parking brake and everything all in one place, it's cheaper to manufacture that part than it is to make all these parts and do this. Now, some people say this adds weight. If it adds weight, it's only a couple of ounces. Some of you don't like this design. Fine, that's your personal preference. But personally, like I said, I would rather have two separate entities for something like this. But yeah, basically that's the parking brake. I can't remember if some of you had issue with the rotor screw thing. As you can see in this one, they didn't reinstall the rotor screws. They're not necessary. Pretty much when you bolt the wheel down, it's going to hold these all on here. But there's two things that I like to put the screws in because it makes it easier to install the caliper. But this missing plug here, which is how you adjust that parking brake assembly through this hole, having this missing like this allows all kinds of contaminants to get into that area and could cause a problem later on. So I don't like that. But other than that, I'm trying to think of anything else that was something that came up.
Yeah, well, I did think of a couple of things, and of course I thought of them after I shot the video. Something else that came up quite a bit is, what about greasing the bearing? The bearing that I installed is a sealed unit. It does not require any lubrication whatsoever, so therefore I didn't grease it. I might have taken maybe a little bit of axle grease and put a little film of that on that spindle shaft before I installed the bearing, and that's mostly to keep out moisture. But as you can see, that race never actually spins on that shaft itself. The bearing actually rides inside the race, so the stuff in there doesn't require any lubrication. It might make it easier to take off in the future, but come on, that's very possible to be like, another 200,000 miles down the road. So I'm not overly concerned about that. Somebody else mentioned something about anti-seize. Well, anti-seize has a time and a place. In my opinion, this is not a place for anti-seize, so I would not use it in this particular application. And others mentioned, instead of my method of cutting off the race and hitting it with a hammer, to actually using a torch to heat it up and get it off. For me, no, I wouldn't do it that way. A couple of reasons. First of all, you're going to temper the metal for that shaft, which, it already is hardened steel, so whether or not that's going to make a huge difference, that's kind of a weak argument on my part. However, there is a plastic ABS sensor. If you heat that up, it's possible that you could damage that ABS sensor. And I got to tell you, the ABS sensors on these cars are crap to begin with. So they don't need any help in being destroyed. Oh, and the question about, is a front bearing similar to this? Not at all. In fact, they're usually much more difficult, and you employ different methods, but that's a different video in and of itself. So I'm going to leave that for another video, and we'll discuss it then. But for now, I believe that covers all of the major concerns that were pointed out in the comments to the last video. So now back to you, Eric.
But the main thing that I saw over and over again was, why is there a drum brake and a disc brake all in the same thing? Parking brake, regular brakes. It's pretty much how it breaks down. Anyway, I am EricTheCarGuy. You can always find me at EricTheCarGuy.com. Also at Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And if you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com, I'm going to post a link in the description. From now on, what I'm doing is I'm posting links to all my videos actually in the forum itself. So you can watch the video over at the forum and make comments or suggestions or whatever over there. You can also comment here on YouTube. I do read YouTube comments. However, I don't comment back other than over at the forum. And the reason I do that is because that goes into our database and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, link in the description to anything you'd like to add to this particular video. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I will see you next time.